not only does the US president not know history, but he also doesn't know his economics. I'm going to come back to the topic, but here's the details of the executive order that has been passed, that has been signed by Donald Trump, putting additional 25% tariffs, and I'm going to go through the salient points of it because it's a huge document. And it says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I hereby determine an order that the prohibition of certain imports and new investments with respect to continued Russian Federation efforts to undermine the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine expanded the scope of the national emergency declared in the executive order in April 2021, and he says it is going to include the actions taken against Ukraine by the government of the Russian Federation to address that unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and the foreign policy of the United States. This new executive order that he has signed will prohibit the importation into the United States certain products of Russian Federation, including crude oil, petroleum fuels, oils, and products of their distillation. And so that's actually a straightforward sanctioning of Russian products being brought into the United States of America. And then he goes about giving, this entire executive order goes on to give details about the previous order that was signed in 2021, what are the modifications that have to be brought in, and so on and so forth. Coming back to you, Andrew Latham, and talking about the ignorance that the US president has demonstrated in front of the world when it comes to his economics. Yesterday a question was asked of him whether he really did know that there have been billions of dollars of imports by way of fertilizers, chemicals, by way of uranium that have been imported by United States from Russia, to which Trump had no answer. He said, I do not know about it. I'm going to get back to you. What do you make of a president like that?
Have known about it and chose to ignore it in this particular bilateral negotiation. He's very capable of being obsessively focused on who's across the table from him rather than who's around the table more broadly. He's also ignorant not just of trade matters, but he's ignorant of the Constitution. He's the American Constitution. He's going to find out pretty soon that all of these executive orders are in fact illegal. He has no authority. Congress, under Article 1 of the Constitution, reserves to itself the right to make trade policy. He's invoked the IEEP, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, which was put in place post-9/11, post-9/11, to deal with rogue states and terrorist organizations, and doesn't mention tariffs at all. It talks about sanctions. And we know what sanctions are, and they're different than tariffs. So he's terribly, either deliberately ill-informed or simply ill-informed. I'm not sure which. But the Supreme Court, I think, is going to take him down a peg or two because the Constitution and the law are actually unambiguous, which is why I think he's kind of panicking at the moment. He's pushing really hard to move really fast. And I think it's a function of the fact that he realizes that just around the corner, he's going to be stripped of this power and he's not going to like it. The other thing I would mention parenthetically is I think beating Japan at their game, a very old society, non-white, that has a bit of history with the United States and beyond with colonialism and whatnot, as a perpetrator of colonialism, not necessarily a victim. I think more than beating up the European Union, I think beating up Japan, I think that's really what emboldened him with respect to going after India. But he doesn't understand that even if Modi was inclined to roll over on this, domestic politics in India are such that he simply can't. It's impossible if he or his party ever wants to be elected again in the foreseeable future. So this is what happens when you get a provincial and an ignoramus in power atop the strongest country on the face of the earth.